the Lord was holding me every step of the way, every step of the way. And even when I wanted to think that he had turned from me, he never turned from me. And that's what I want people to know. Like your series, the one, like that's what I want the one person to know. That the Lord never stopped holding them, never stopped loving them. Nothing's a surprise to him. Like I didn't know that was going to be a part of my story.
Yeah.
But he knew.
Yeah.
He chose me. He died for me. He loves me. Nothing is a surprise to him.
Hey, housewives, come on in. You know the dirty dishes are still in the sink from yesterday and the laundry is still in the basket. Pop your AirPods in and make yourself at home here.
I'm Tracy.
I'm Tori.
And we are your Unlikely Housewives. Stepping out in faith and believing that God calls the unlikely, we are here to show you the appreciation and validation you deserve, lead you to authentic relationships, and release you of believing the cultural lies to restore your faith and wellness.
Pull up those high-waisted yoga pants, tighten your top knot, and reheat your coffee for the third time. Turn up the volume, and let's go. Hey, housewives.
Hey.
This one, man. Whew.
This is good.
This is so good. And I think Jen's story is like one of, millions are like her.
Yeah.
I think we need more of Jen's.
Yeah, we do. Authenticity.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like our heart is being that authentic and really just talking about things that people don't talk about. And you could say that we bring that out in our guests in a good way. You know, usually they're willing and willing to talk about them. We're not making them.
You don't see the duct tape and the hand ties. But we
really,
do.
Her heart is real and raw. And I absolutely love the unfolding of the layers that she shares, because we're all still growing into who, God calls us to be, even as adults and as moms and as wives and friends and daughters of the King. Like we just continue to grow, and she just shines a light on all that she's walked through and just really encourages you to not stay in that isolation.
Absolutely. And it's the way that she talks about they're still untangling. They're still processing. They're still healing from all of that. And I think it reminds me that, we're not done until he tells us we're done. I mean, that's when he calls us home, when he's like, you're done. You've used the time that I've allotted you. And we don't know how long that is. But then it also encourages us, it's like, this is a journey, not a destination here in life.
Yep.
And so with Jen's story about her abortion and how she came to that decision and how God has redeemed that through the rest of her life is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So
through her family, through her marriage, through her friendships, through her church, and into this ministry. It's just a beautiful picture of reminding you that you are not alone.
Exactly. So enjoy this episode. This is for the one struggling with abortion. Hey, housewife.
Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back. Happy to have you. We have got a returning guest.
Yay.
And it's so special for the series. So Trace, go ahead and introduce our lovely.
Yes, I'm happy to. Okay, today we have Jen Thompson, is a wife, mother of 4, and a popular blogger at Truly Yours, Jen. Her writings are featured in Her View from Home, Scary Mommy, and Love What Matters. She just released her first book, Return to Jesus, in April, which we absolutely love. And Jen and her family live in Nolensville, Tennessee. We had Jen on a couple months ago sharing about teen parenting and the isolation that tends to come with that territory. And today she is going to so vulnerably share about her abortion experience as a teenager and how ultimately the love of Jesus covered and freed her from so much secrecy and shame. She was a listener favorite last season. Welcome back, Jen.
Yay! Thank you for having me, ladies. I'm very excited. I adore you and your show, and it is really just an honor to be able to talk with you And I appreciate your heart and willingness to share about this difficult subject. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'll then that $20 for that great endorsement that you
It was 25.
Yeah, right. I'll get that. I'll send it. And let's go back to, we're connected to you through your agent, I guess, or, you know, and it was for your book. And we had such a great conversation with you pre-interview. And then we started talking about other things and, you know, we just hit it off. And then this topic came up and we were like, wait a second, this is part of where we're going this summer with the You Are Not Alone and tackling some of the topics that are really not mentioned much in church circles, in churches, in the church walls, and people don't know what to do with them. They're like, ooh, great. Let me back out of this conversation really quick because they're either afraid they're going to put their foot in their mouth or they're going to, you know, say something. I mean, it's just like, I'll let you handle that. Like we just are not equipped. Unfortunately, the church is not equipped to handle these subjects as a congregation. There may be very well prepared ministries within the church, but congregations as a whole, and I don't think from the pulpit very much, pastors are not speaking on these topics. And so this is a topic that is hard. And with that being said, this is your story about how you had an abortion when you were in college.
Yes. And I could not agree more. I think that we don't talk about these kinds of things, or when we do talk about these topics, there is such a tension that exists. And so I think what happens to people, I don't think it's the intention, but the silence, I think, creates more silence, where there's this feeling that this is a part of my story, but this is a part of my story that I have to hide. It's a part of the story that nobody can find out, because if they find out, I'll be judged, I'll be condemned, I'll be alone. I think that, you know, these things that aren't necessarily talked about, like my experience with abortion, I think that we think we're alone, but the reality is there are so many. I remember hearing a stat years ago when I did a post-abortive Bible study, and this was years ago, and they said 1 out of every 4 people sitting in a church have a personal experience with abortion.
I remember hearing that stat, and that was one that was like, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, just looking down the pew, you're going, okay, so there's 3 people who have experience with it, like right here next to me. Yeah. It's insane.
Well, and I wonder, like, I've often wondered, how low is that number? Because that's that's the stat that they got. That's people that have actually said, this is a part of my story.
Right. True.
Yep.
And there are so many times, but now that I am able to freely speak, which took a long time to get to that point, but there are so many times when somebody will either message me or come up to me or afterwards say, like, me too, but I've never told a soul. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how often I hear that, and I can empathize because I was there for so long. I mean, that was the space I resided, but people can't find this out about me.
Yeah. Growing up, what was the religious belief, religious standards kind of in your house? How did you grow up?
So I grew up in a Catholic home. And for me personally, my faith at that time was more about my works. Like, I do these things to be a good Catholic girl, to hopefully earn my way to heaven. It's not that's what my mom wasn't telling me that at home. It's just somehow that was the message that I picked up, that it was about the things that I did or didn't do. And we didn't talk in my house about things like abortion, but I know that the church was very against it. So there wasn't really conversation at home growing up. But I think in my mind at a young age, I thought, this is the unforgivable sin. I don't know when I picked that up or where I picked that up. I picked that up. Like I did believe that this was somehow an unforgivable sin somewhere. And I believe that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel like we all, I mean, I grew up in the church too, but I do think it was one of those that if you grow up in, in a church, that is a standard belief that, I mean, we're created to create life, so that unforgivable sin of creating life and then the act of getting there, of having sex before marriage, both of those are being, those unforgivable sins. So as teenagers, when you're in isolation and you're not talking to anybody about it, you do feel alone, and then you stay there because you're like, well, this is what I'm doing, or this is how I feel. And it's that shame that just, it keeps you there.
Well, and I would also throw in suicide with that. Like suicide I was always under the impression, like, that is the unforgivable sins, right? And you just have this idea of what, and we've talked about this for the church, and we do because we're human, but we rank sins, right? Yeah. Jesus doesn't.
No.
That's what's incredible. Like, we feel like high and mighty to go, well, I only told this small lie, or I only did that, but he doesn't rank. It's not one over the other and go, okay, you're up the ladder on this sin. Because we always justify ourselves. We're like, well, at least I'm not doing that. Or at least I'm not committing adultery. Or at least I haven't, murdered somebody. I'm not in jail. I'm not on death row. Like, we justify ourselves because we tell ourselves that there's a ranking system.
Yeah. I think about that all of the time. Like, I think about like the thoughts we have, the words we say, there are so many times in a day that I sin against the Lord. And I don't even know half the time, I'm sure, that this is going to do, but let all that stuff go. And we have a ranking system that I think is so harmful to so many people because it's not how the Lord sees us, but because there is this ranking system, I think we just put so many people in places of shame. Not we do, but like
culturally it happens.
Culturally. Yeah, that's the word. Culturally. I think unintentionally put, people end up in these spaces.
Yeah. And
so clearly you've got this, belief system of this is an unforgivable sin. You're in, I think you said you were a freshman in college when you found out you were pregnant.
Yes.
And how did you handle it? Did you talk to family? Did you handle it on your own? What did that look like?
Yeah. So I was 19 years old, and I remember I was on a jog. I just was thinking, I was like, gosh, I don't know the last time I had my period. And so I went to the college convenient mart, got a test, jogged to my now husband, then boyfriend at the time's house, took the test, and instantly, it was an instant positive. And I just remember sitting there for the longest time, like before I came out, just like, oh my goodness, like, I can't believe it. And he and I went back and forth for a long time. In fact, one of the things that we had to work through, that he and I had to work through before we could get married, was that his response was, well, you make the choice and I'll just support whatever choice you make, which puts so much pressure on, because I was like, wait, no, this is our choice. This can't just be my choice. But in his mind, him saying, I support whatever, was like his way of saying, like, I will show up for you. I am here. I'm invested in the baby. I'm invested in you, whatever. But what I heard was, oh no, this all has fallen on me now. And yes, we way worked through that. But that was hard. And so I think I felt more alone, kind of, in some ways. And then also, it was really odd because somewhere in the back of my mind, I think I knew I wasn't going to keep the baby. But I started doing everything like you would if you're pregnant and you want your child to be healthy. Like, at that time I smoked. So I quit smoking. I quit drinking. I started watching what I was eating. And to me, when I look back now, I'm like, that just shows how conflicted I was, that there was a part of me that's like trying to protect the baby, but then also another part of me that's trying to figure out how to not have the baby.
Yeah.
So I would lay in bed at night and hold my belly and cry. I lost sleep. I didn't tell much of anybody. Pat and I did go, Pat's my husband. We did go to talk to a pastor because as I got closer to making the choice to terminate the pregnancy, I was so scared that I was forever, God was going to turn from me for the rest of my life. And so we went and met with a pastor, and he said, no. He's like, that's not. He's like, whatever you choose, the Lord loves you. He knows. Like, he knows the choice. He knew the choice before you were even born. And he's like, nothing will change his love. And so I sat with that for a while. And eventually, and I told my dad, he and my stepmom, they were the only family and I guess we did tell Pat's sister too. But I felt like my only choices were, like, one of the things my dad and I talked about was that I could have the baby and stay in college, and then he and my stepmom would raise the baby during the week, and I would come home during the weekends. And that seemed like an impossibility. Everything seemed impossible. Everything seemed hard. And I also was very much like this type A, straight A student who I was supposed to go to college. I was supposed to get my degree. I'm supposed to get a good job. I'm supposed to get married. I was one of those people, like, this is how life is supposed to go. And being a firstborn type A perfectionist type person, I'm like, I can't veer off the path into this.
It's following the checklist.
Yeah.
It's unintentionally following the checklist and thinking that I've checked all these boxes. This wasn't supposed to be part of, because I did all the things. I did, I got into college. I'm getting my degree. Because I did all the things that I'm supposed to do. This wasn't supposed to be part of my story. There's a lot that can relate to that.
Well, and I saw judgment on either side. I was like, I'm the unwed teenage mother who's probably dropped out of college, because I didn't see how that was possible for me just to drive, 3 hours home every weekend. So I'm like, I saw judgment and shame on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's normal though, because, just in situations I've been in and ones that we've talked to for this summer series, it's like you feel alone because you don't feel like whatever side you want to be on of the pendulum, that somebody's in there is in that same space with you.
Yeah.
And it is hard because someone, and again, this would be a question I would just love to ask. And you can come to this later. I would love to know the conversations with your family at the age in which you are now, or, whenever you started talking about it, what that looks like, because I think we only show up for our family or in situations in what we know how, right? And experience. And this is why we're kind of having these conversations, because we feel like we're showing up as friends with friends, going through a lot of these difficult things in life right now. And you're like, I don't know, I've never been through this, but I just want to be here for you because I've been in this situation. I've been in isolation, and I know what it feels like. So I say all that just because I feel like you're sharing such that, like, this both sides, and this is life. This is like everything that we face. It's like one side, you're feeling alone in the middle. This is why we stay in isolation. This is why we stay in shame, because we don't know where to go or how to get out of it. And I mean, we know how the story ends. Jesus redeems. But before we get to that part, continue walking us through, how you came to the decision with Pat.
Yeah. So, and I do love what you just said about isolation, because that's so true. Like, I remember thinking back to that time, I felt alone I just felt alone. Any way I was going, I felt just so alone, which is so funny because now I look back and I'm like, I wasn't alone at all. But when you're in those moments, yeah, it's just, it's how I felt. But so we did eventually decide, we made the choice, obviously, to terminate the pregnancy. And I remember it was spring break, my freshman year of college. And I went to my dad's house the night before. And I remember just crying all night, like crying. And I remember my dad actually coming into the room. No, good. And he laid down with me like when I was a little girl. And he just held me. He was like, you don't have to do this. He's like, you don't have to do this. And I was like, but I do. I was like, I don't know what else to do. And there was just a lot of tenderness in his voice. And I just remember I just really felt like I had no choice. And that's the thing I've come to realize is that you never know until you've been in a situation, and like they say, you've never walked a mile in someone's shoes. And one of the things that has come for me from this experience in my life is I just think like, how dare I ever judge another person? Because I lived in fear of being judged for so long. And it's just really given me empathy for all stories, all things. Because you just don't know. Like, I just feel like that's the thing I learned more and more in life. I can, even as a mom, like I remember before I had my kids, I'll never do this. I'll always do this. And then you have your baby and it's like, what was I thinking? I didn't know.
We're the best parent until we actually become parents. Like, I would never let my kid watch the iPad for more than 30. Like it's so easy to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think I have compassion. Like I would not say I would never. I would not say I would always, because until I'm in that position, I just don't know.
Yeah. Well, the picture that you gave us right now of your dad tenderly laying with you, like, what a gift you had, an earthly father that showed you the same love as what your heavenly Father has continued to show you after this. Like, that is a real picture, like a perfect visual. And you were 19, you had free will. And this is what we keep talking about here, is all these decisions and things that kids make. You were still a kid, but you were an adult. That was your decision. And he loved you through it every step. I'm hoping every step of the way.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I have thought of that. It was a very tangible image. And one I couldn't see for a long time because I was so caught up in the shame. So afterwards, I really went through a downward spiral. Like I was already making that the best choices. But then after that, it was, well, I've already done this, so I'll just do whatever. I just became self-destructive, self-loathing, almost like unintentionally trying to hurt myself because I was hurting so much. But that wasn't a conscious thought. But now, as I have come to the other side, and as I have come to, it took a lot of time, a long time. But now where I am in my healing, I see the Lord, how you described, like how my dad gave me that picture. I see now that the Lord was holding me every step of the way, every step of the way. And even when I wanted to think that he had turned from me, he never turned from me. And that's what I want people to know. Like your series, that's what I want the one person to know, that the Lord never stopped holding them, never stopped loving them. Nothing's a surprise to him. Like, I didn't know that was going to be a part of my story.
Yeah.
But he knew.
Yeah.
He chose me. He died for me. He loves me. Nothing is a surprise to him.
Yeah.
Am I answering these questions too long?
You are doing amazing.
Okay.
And
Phenomenal.
we thank you, because I know this takes so much courage and bravery. And you don't need to tell how old you are, but obviously you've been doing this a while and tapping into all that you have. This isn't I mean, I see and I still feel the emotion that is carried with it. And one of the things that you said, I just want to touch on, because you said something that you said, I was subconsciously trying to hurt myself because of how much I was hurting. And if that doesn't describe so much of what teenagers face, everybody faces it, but that's such a teenager thing. They don't know how bad they're hurting, but that the hurt that they're doing to themselves in, self-harm, or the drinking, the drugs, the coping, that, all of that. I see that from what you just said, like in such a different perspective, that the hurt drives the sin, the shame drives the sin. And it's such a weight that I think we just, again, all need to realize that, hey, we all deal with it completely different. And what a gift you were given to see that the Lord stayed with you through it all. And some people don't get that chance, and some people have yet to have that moment, but we hope and pray that they will. Okay, so carry on in your story.
Yeah, but I love how you just said that about the teenagers, because that is so true. And I think even back to that time, I think I felt like, well, if I've already done so many of these things I said I would never do, then what's one more? It's like you said, it's like the shame just created more. And it's just, and the more it piled on top of each other, the worse I felt. And then the more I wanted to escape that feeling.
Yeah.
So it's just this vicious cycle. But so, yeah, I feel like it took a really long time for me to come to the place where I am now. It was a long journey, because then after the self-destruction, I had a moment where I'll just say this. I wanted to end my life. Like I had a night where I had been cheating on Pat. I had gotten into a bunch of things that I couldn't imagine I would have ever gotten into. And like after a night of partying, I was sitting on the floor in my home. It was my senior year of college. I was just like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like I don't know who I am. I don't know how I've fallen so far away. And I sat down on the floor and I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how I can end this. And like we had a detached garage and it was full of stuff. Like I literally went to all these places in my house trying to figure it out. And finally this feeling, it was just the Lord. I just felt his presence then, felt his presence in so long. Just like, I'm here. Just come back. Just come back here. I've always been here. And I got up off the floor and I called a friend and I said, hey, I'm in a really dark space. Can you just come be with me? And she came and sat with me. And I can see now that was the beginning of my healing. And then I just see like the Lord just put people in my path. He put just so graciously and with so much compassion, just picked me up off of that hardwood floor. And over time, just showed me that he had never left me. But it took a really long time before I could speak this part of my story. I would tell everybody everything else, the substance abuse, the cheating, the eating disorder, the everything. I would lay that out in a second, but I would not talk about my abortion. That took decades.
And do you think that was because that was the deepest root of shame? And that's the silence from that built an even, I mean, you had said you were talking about other things, so you weren't silent about everything, but you were silent about the one thing that created the rest of the destruction.
Yeah, that was the deepest root I mean, that was the thing. I thought, if people find out about this, they're going to judge me. They're not going to like me. At that point, I still wasn't really sure what God thought about me. Like, I understood that the rest could be forgiven, but I still wasn't so sure about that part. So I think and it was something like we talked about at the very beginning, when nobody was talking. I wasn't hearing about it. Like, it's not something that was addressed. Even when I rededicated my life to Christ, and I'm very active in our church. Pat and I found a wonderful non-denominational Christian church in Indianapolis that we started attending. We got married. We joined this community group. We were so immersed and so involved. But I still, it wasn't a conversation. That was not a conversation. So as far as I was concerned, I was still like the one, like the only one.
Yeah. At what point did you told us this before we started to record, as far as there was a pregnancy crisis center right around the block from where you lived, and tell us more about because you said that was where you first felt like, oh my gosh, this is judgment free.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So this was such an answer to prayer. So there were a few people that Pat, and I guess I should say, there were a few people that we had started to tell, like our very closest friends. There were a handful of people that we had slowly started to tell. But for the most part, it was like, I was a very small number.
Quick question, Jen. As far as timeline, so you're a senior in college, you're contemplating ending it all, as far as you have this turning point of where God is graciously said, I'm here, and you have felt it. Now you've graduated college, and I don't want this to be missed, like, you and Pat get married.
Yes.
And you're happily married today. And
that's great.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So like, I want people to know like that timeline of things. So at what point, how long after college did you get married? And Pat, because this is, it's his story. He's obviously, God is such
that's a great question. So shortly after I had the moment, rededicating my life to Christ, that was when I was a senior in college. I graduated, and one of my roommates was in Indianapolis, which is where Pat lived. So he's 3.5 years older than me. So he was already in Indy. And I was like, if I want to be with him, I need to go to Indy. Like, I need to go there. So I moved in with my college roommate, and Pat and I found a church. We became really involved there, and he proposed. We had to go through healing. Like, we had different moments where we had to go to those hard places. We had to have conversations about what had happened in the past. And he has modeled for me Christ's love in the most beautiful way, because I did hurt him, and he had every reason to walk away from me, but he forgave me really and truly, didn't hold anything over my head, never. It was really and truly like, I forgive you. I love you. We are moving forward. And so after he proposed, we had a 1.5 year engagement, which was intentional. So we had been together when we were married. I think we've been together for 8 years. We got together when I was 17. We were together for a really long time, but that engagement period was just so we could have I don't know if I should say like a pure relationship, but just
Christ-like relationship.
Yeah, like
you want a do-over. Like, let's start this on the right foot.
Yeah. Which I don't know if this is okay to say on a podcast, but even like on our wedding night, I was nervous. Like, obviously I had sex before, but I was like, I felt nervous, which was the craziest thing to me, that I could go from that to, it was just the craziest thing. But yeah, we had a really long engagement. And then when we were married, I realized there was just still work. Like I wasn't healed. I was still living in this place of secrecy and silence and shame. And I was in the car driving and heard a commercial for the Crisis Pregnancy Center. And there was a woman giving her testimony about her experience with abortion. And there was a crisis pregnancy center, like two blocks down the road from our house. And I think it was later that day. Like it was either that day or the next day. I drove there and I got out of my car and I rush in and I'm just like, I need to volunteer here. Like I have to volunteer. And I feel like I was like water being released from a fire hydrant. Like the lady had to know like something. Yeah, people like to volunteer, but she's a little too eager. Like she knew something was up. So she was like, I need you to come back in my office. She's like, this is great, but we need to talk. And she was like, tell me your story. I want to hear your story. And this thing that I didn't tell anybody ever, I told her everything. Like it all came out. And she looked at me and she was like, you are in the right place. The Lord has brought you here for a reason. She's like, I love that you love to study, you want to serve, but you can't serve here until you go through this post-abortive Bible study. She's like, you need to heal and understand the Lord's love for you before you can minister to the women here. And I attended this Bible study, and it absolutely was one of the biggest gifts from God in my life, to meet with other women who had also made this choice and to go through scripture and to not feel judged, to not feel shame, but just to feel so much love. It was just one of the greatest gifts. And then when I did start to serve at the center, one of the things that I loved so much about this ministry was that if a woman chose to keep her baby, they had all these resources. They said, if you need, government assistance or if you need clothes, if you need food, if you need diapers, they walked alongside the woman who chose to keep her baby. And if you chose not to, here is a Bible study for you. Here is a place of healing. Here are counseling resources. Here's how much the Lord loves you. And they walked alongside the woman who chose the abortion. They walked alongside everybody. And being a part of that ministry and just seeing everyone loved so well, I was like, this is like the kingdom of God. It was like the hands and feet of Christ. Because in my mind, it was just like people just yell at you and scream at you and tell you how horrible you are. And I was like, they aren't telling me how horrible. They are like going with me to these darkest places. I had never experienced anything like that before.
When you're saying it, I was thinking it as you were saying it, that it's like, this is the kingdom of God. And this is the series. It's for the one who is a part of the kingdom and feels alone. We want people to hear stories like this and realize that you're going to walk through some really difficult things, but there are people there. This is a ministry. This is a space that you can come authentically you and be seen and be loved. And that's ultimately what we all desire.
And a lot of times we fool ourselves into thinking that the only church is a building with a cross on it. And we tell ourselves like, well, I'm not, there. And it's not. Church is where two or more are gathered in his name. Like that is a church. And for you, the crisis, how many times, Crisis Pregnancy Center was a church. That is where you felt God's love. Like that was where he was and is. And we so often put labels or expectations on things. You know, like I'm not going to church every Sunday, and so God's far from me. I don't care who shows up on Sunday, but if you're getting church somewhere out, like you can very well be getting church somewhere else than the place on the, that's on the street that has a full parking lot on Sundays. And we forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that was a big thing for me too, because when I rededicated my life to Christ, and Pat and I, we work every Sunday. We're joining all the ministry. We're doing all the things. And then we had our babies, and we have, 4 kids in 6 years, and life did what life does. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, I can't perform anymore the way that I once did. I can't do all the things. And so then that was even more of an untangling of, wait, the Lord doesn't love me because of what I do or how many times I'm here. He just loves me because he loves me, because I'm his child. There's a lot of untangling I had to do.
I think we all are, though. Like I can relate to that in so many seasons of, parenting. It's amazing how the parenting world really teaches you about God's grace and love and forgiveness and all the things.
All the things
you do. You
All
just
the
keep
things.
unraveling piece by piece.
So give us a timeline. Okay. So at what point did you find that you and Pat were married when you found the Crisis Pregnancy Center? Did you have any kids at that point? Where was that in the timeline?
Yeah. So I had Sophia. So she's our oldest, and I would actually take her with me there to volunteer. Like I would bring her with me, and they would she had like a little pack and play in the office. And then I started actually facilitating the post-abortive Bible studies.
Wow.
But it's funny though, because one of the things that they really encouraged was asking the Lord to share, like who to share with and when. Because obviously, just like with all parts of our heart and stories, like there has to be discernment in who we share with and when we share with, or when we share. And so it's a big part of it is just, really pray about that. And even as I was facilitating the studies, there were still so many people I was so close to that I still didn't tell. So this is crazy. I don't know how much time we have, but I had been praying and praying, Lord, show me, when can I tell, especially our Bible study. So we had this group of friends we met with every Wednesday night for years, and they were our closest friends. And the way that our church worked was they had the community groups helped with childcare. You were assigned every few months a childcare rotation. So our group was doing childcare at the church. And then we all went to the next service together. That's just like what we would do. We'd go next service. And I still hadn't told so many of them. And our pastor said, he's like, we're going to do something different. It's like, I have a microphone. And if you feel a fluttering in your spirit, if there's something the Lord's been working in you and you want to share it, now is the time to share. And I was like, no, I am not getting up in front of the church.
Oh my gosh.
I've been hiding this for so long. Like, this is not how I'm going to share. But I just kept feeling that, like that flutter. And I look and I was like, God made a way for all of our closest friends to be here. I'm sitting here with my closest friends. So I stood up and I said it. And I said, when I was 19, I had an abortion. And I told the story. And afterwards, they all hugged me. They hugged my husband. And I've just had so many moments like that where it's just like, I'm like something it's the enemy. It's like, you're going to be condemned. Keep your mouth shut. Don't you? But then what happens is it's always the opposite of that. I have never had it be anything, but I love you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for saying this, So what I've learned throughout all of this is that silence was such a heavy load to carry. Like it was such a weight that I didn't even know I was carrying. And there is so much freedom on the other side, but it takes a long time to get there. And that's okay. Like if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I can't imagine telling one person, like, be gentle with yourself and just pray for the Lord to show you if there is one person.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing that you have 4 kids and they're older, is this a part of the story this part of the story, do they all know? I mean, is this something that all your children know at this point?
Yeah. So Patrick doesn't know yet. He's 12, but we will tell him soon. All of the girls know. That was something. So again, the steps, I prayed for a long time. My husband and I prayed, like, when is an appropriate time for them to hear this part of our story? But what has happened is, the Lord has led me to speak more openly and write about this and share about this, and I really feel like this is a part of my ministry. It kind of propelled those conversations to happen.
Yeah.
Because I know the girls, like, they read stuff, like, it's in books. This story is also in another book that I have a story in. So God Made a Mother, my abortion story is in that book. And so I was like, if I'm going to be speaking about this, sharing about this, writing about this, the last thing I want is for my children to hear this part of my story stumbling upon it while they're, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So our conversations have been so great. They've all responded differently. All 3 of the girls responded very differently. Our tender-hearted daughter cried. She was sad. One of our daughters was like, oh, it's like, okay, well, what's for dinner?
Right.
Yeah. There's that kid.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for sharing. Are we going out to eat tonight? Or are you cooking? Like, there was no. And
Pretty
then our oldest, I think, was somewhere in the middle. But there was so much freedom in sharing with them, too. I mean, that's the thing I've seen, is that the Lord's love for me has never changed. He's always known. And there has been so much freedom. Like, sharing with the girls, there's a lot of freedom in that. So I'm not hiding that from them either anymore. And again, everything is age appropriate, right?
Right. Yeah.
Always need to ask for wisdom and discernment from the Lord. It's not like we're going to sit down our 6-year-olds and be like, guess what I did? Like, no.
Yeah.
When you're speaking to the one piece that I want to encourage our listeners, and again, this is whether it's this type of a story and situation or just another hardship and trial, it really is like the first step is to meet with the Lord and to be praying and to understand and learn from him how he wants you to share, who he wants you to share with, and in what timing. Because I've had very many of those moments too, of like the Lord going, okay, this is something you need to talk about. This is something that you need to do, and granted, podcast has come out of that in many episodes and many things. However, there's things that are still stirring, and that the Lord will use it in his timing. It doesn't mean, okay, you're here telling people, that the unraveling and the pieces and, there's so many layers of healing and there's so many layers of things that we have to go through when we've gone through something so difficult. And, we have had a grief counselor on here, there's layers of grief. There's so many layers. And the one biggest thing that we want people to hear, and our biggest, question for you is, God redeems all things. And clearly it's turned into a ministry for you. But just, will you close us out with that, just in how, Jesus has redeemed all of this in your life?
Yes. Oh, I love it so much. It's such a great question. Even the fact that I'm talking to you right now, to me, that is to go from a place where horribly long ago, I couldn't imagine telling anybody, to now I'm having this conversation with you, and to know that even if somebody is listening, which I don't think that it will be in this case, and they're like, oh, I can't believe you did that. Like, that's on them. That's on them. If they want to judge me, if they decide they don't like me, that's something they have to work out. And so part of the redemption has also been coming to this point where my worth comes from the Lord. My worth comes from him. It's not based on how somebody else is going to respond to my story. And I don't need to worry about the person that doesn't like this. What I'm concerned about at this point in my life is the person who is listening, who has been in the spaces that I am, the person who's listening, who has also made this choice or any other choice that they feel ashamed of or that they are struggling with, just to know you are loved, you are seen. God is for you. He is with you. He has never left you. And so the redemption for me is embracing that for myself, but then also wanting so badly to share so that other people who are in these places can just know that they are not alone. You are not alone. You have never been alone. And I understand it. That doesn't take away from the moments when you feel alone. But my prayer is that somebody might hear this story and just, even if they just start the unraveling. And I just love, Jesus, when he took it on the cross, he said, "It is finished." And that's everything. We have our hierarchy of sins, the things that we like to, everything. Like, that's not how the Lord sees us. And I just wish that we could stop seeing ourselves that way.
We need to wrap it up and do a callback to the ranking of sin. Like that. Like, that, well done. Like, it's almost like you're a professional at this, or like you've done this before. Well, Jen, we just want to say thank you so much for your authenticity, your vulnerability, and for, I'm going to say, being obedient. Like, God uses all things for the good of those who love him, for his glory and his purpose. And there's never a time that is not true. That is a fact. And your life in testimony is proof of that. So just want to say thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. And thank you for creating this space where I feel so comfortable sharing these parts of my life and story. You have such a beautiful ministry, and it truly is an honor to be a guest on your show. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Jen.
All right, Housewives, will put all of her contact info where you can find her and her book in our show notes. Until next time.
Bye.
Whether we made you laugh or cry today, we pray you feel appreciated, bolder and braver than yesterday, stronger and more faithful for tomorrow, and living in who you were made to be today.
Join our online community on Facebook, link in the show notes. And be sure to review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you enjoy listening. Until next time, Housewives, we give you permission to walk confidently, free, and to be intentional in your slippers or stilettos.